Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laura Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 5:30 in here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, Wednesday morning, November the 30th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. On for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And chat room is open. I did pop a link in there to what we were looking at yesterday and taking a look at some tips, some self-esteem tips from a website called Spiritwire. And really quite interesting. There's 21 tips there. So we'll go through some of those. It's really cool. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a private citizen doing my shows here on Blog Talk Radio. And, I just wanted to be one more voice speaking out about this, about the issues of abuse, and wanted to be another voice for survivors and whatnot. And the show in the morning, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, really is my healing journey. So, it's really just a form of talk therapy, but I found it very helpful because I was able to work on my healing journey for just a short period of time during the day, and first thing in the morning before I start my day, and work through some things I need to work through, and then move on through my day, right? So it was very helpful for me to do this, but I hope it's helping somebody else as well, who's out there who's, maybe never told anybody they were abused and never got any help, and really just suffering on their own. That's what a lot of survivors of abuse will do, and they won't tell anybody, and then they just suffer in their own situation by themselves, and that's a horrible way to live. I know. I told people what had happened to me as a child, because people would tell me about their childhoods, and then I'd mention mine, and then pretty soon I'd lose that friend, because they'd just be like, "Oh my God, that's just too much for me. I can't handle that." So then I stopped telling people. I was like, okay, well, there's no sense in telling anybody. Nobody really wants to hear. But it's really unfortunate. There's not, there are places where survivors can get help. I always encourage people to reach out, but daily walk. We have to be very proactive in seeking out that help, and seeking out what we can find that will help us to feel better and to help us to have a decent, good life, So whatever you do, make sure you do reach out and get some help, right? So I'm not a therapist or counselor, I'm just doing my shows here on Blog Talk Radio. You have to listen at your own discretion. I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a sensitive subject, so you have to know what's good for you to listen to. And if you think my shows might bother you, the topics of abuse of any type might bother you, then you need to turn the show off. And if you're under 18 and under, I just ask that you have an adult listen to the show with you, someone who's older who can listen to the show and help you make a decision whether you should be listening or not. Age appropriately, right? Because I don't know how young the people are who are listening to my shows, right? So, I've been sort of taking a little bit of a break from my shows and doing a little bit of other stuff, which has really been something that I feel like I need to do, working through a lot of counseling information for myself, for biblical counseling, as well as life coaching, and not just Christian life coaching, but regular, secular life coaching and things like this. So, and also just been really tired, so I've just taken a little bit of break from my shows. But I'm glad to be back, and I love to do these shows because they're very helpful for me, and I hope they're helping somebody else, right? So we'll get right into this topic here this morning. This is 21 self-esteem tips and self-love from Spiritwire.com, www.spiritwire, all one word, spiritwire.com, and it's Brighten Your World, and they have some products and books and whatnot that they have on their website, but they also have these 21 tips for building self-esteem and self-love. And, people who have suffered and been abused, especially, through childhood, or, even in domestic violence and abuse situations, we all need to learn how to be good to ourselves and how to love ourselves. If we weren't shown that as children, and all we grew up with really was negative, abusive, stuff in our childhood, then we really need to learn as adults how to do this stuff. It's not something that, like I wasn't shown how to take care of myself, so I have to learn that as an adult, and I have to and how to take care of all of my needs, not just my physical needs, but my spiritual needs, my physical needs, my mental needs, like everything. I have to learn how to take care of my whole self. And so it's unfortunate that so many of us have been so mistreated that we actually have to learn how to do this, but it's the truth. And self-worth and self-love and all that. Growing up abused, it's quite often people's sense of self will be damaged, you know what I mean? So that's what I spend, really have spent the last 2 years looking at, looking back mainly. And so what I've been doing lately, because my healing journey, I tell you, I've come a long way on it. I've been on my healing journey for 5 years. April of next year will be 5 years, and that's a long time, but not in the course of things where consider my whole life. 5 years is just a period of time in my life, and it's not. I don't mind that it's taken me 5 years to get where I am today, because I'm in such a better place than I used to be. It's I know what it's like to be on the other side of that. You know what I mean? I know what it's like to be down and depressed and feeling, like wanting to self-injure and wanting to get out of my pain and wanting to do something to numb myself so that I don't have to feel anymore. It's very sad that so many of us end up in this position, as survivors of abuse and survivors of abuse. Absolutely horrific. And so I remember what it's like to be sitting there. I remember that the day that I was on my couch, and I was in my apartment sitting on my couch wanting to self-injure March of 2007. And that's when the thought came to me that, wow, it's going to have to be me to do this, to change this. I'm going to have to be the one to get help. I'm going to have to be the one that, if I really want to have a good life, it's going to have to be me to do it. It was a realization sort of came over me. I always thought somebody else would be able to help me or do something for me to make my life better, and I didn't really snap that it was going to be me that was going to have to do all this work, until that point, about almost 5 years ago. So that's what I started doing, was working on it right away with self-affirmations and a lot of positive affirmations and stuff. And I thought, well, I don't know if it'll work, but I'm certainly going to try it. And I started doing a lot of things like just throughout the day, telling myself, whether it's in my apartment or at work or whatever, I do count, I am worth it, I do love myself. And I would tell myself this stuff, and I really didn't, if I believed it or not. I wasn't sure if I believed what I was telling myself, but I was telling myself that stuff anyway, because I thought, you know what, no, I'm going to change the way I feel. I'm going to change the way I feel about myself and about this life, and I'm going to change the way I feel, internally, as well as externally, about myself, and learn how to really truly love myself. And so it took me a while to work through that stuff, and but I've come a long way, and so that's why, lately, because I did my one of the major last parts of my healing journey was to face the CSA incest that I suffered as a child, and I did that over the last year, and mainly the big portion of it the last 6 months, and doing a whole lot of visualization work and whatnot. I've been talking about that in some of my previous shows. Visualization work from Beverly Searle's program called Forget Talking Therapy, which is really all about the limbic system. And the limbic system is where we hold our emotion. That's the emotion seat of the brain, and it holds pictures. It doesn't hold words, and there's no language. So in that part of the brain, it's all pictures. And that's why, for my whole sitting around having these flashbacks and memories of the abuse that I suffered, and that's because the trauma and the emotions that stirred around that trauma, being abused and being beaten and raped and everything else, was all stored in my limbic system, which, after learning this, realizing that it was all pictures that were there, I needed to create a different safe place for myself with pictures instead of words. So I went through Beverly Searle's program, the first half of it anyway, with a good friend of mine, Gypsy Witch, and she was the facilitator for me for that, and she's my good friend, and she worked with me for quite a while on that first part of that program. So that really helped me out. I have to tell everybody. I don't know if it would help everybody else out. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm a survivor of abuse. And so, I don't know if it would work for somebody else. All I know is that it really helped me out. And because I don't feel the same way that I did before I started doing that work. Like, I'm in a lot better place. And it doesn't mean that I've forgotten what happened to me or that that I'm in denial or something like that, because I'm just not in denial. I wrote a book and everything else. It's just my inner children are in such a better place, As soon as I realized I had all these inner children, I needed to help them, because I knew that was the part of me, the bigger part of me that was suffering. Because adult Lori is doing okay, Like I cope really quite well. And my worst habit is smoking, I smoke cigarettes, and I'm trying to quit that. And I've been smoking cigarettes for a long time, and it's a real bad habit. It's a bad crutch to hold on to. And so for me, I'm having a hard time letting go of it. But that's like my worst habit. Otherwise, my life is pretty okay. You know what I mean? I have things in my life that would drag most people down. You know, my sweetheart's terminally ill, and I'm physically not all that well, and can't seem to hold a permanent job, period. You know what I mean? Just can't get one. You know what I mean? I go and I apply, and people are just like, nah. And my skills are really quite good. So that's, that's where this whole self-esteem stuff kind of has to come into play. Like, looking back and doing all that work for the last 2 years has been, especially here on Blog Talk Radio, has been great because it has helped me out a lot. And then this last 6 months doing the visualization stuff for my inner child and her children from Beverly Searles' program, and also working through John Bradshaw's books and Robert Burney, who's a codependent therapist and counselor, working through his book, Codependence, The Dance of Wounded Souls, all kinds of great info, really helped me out. And so, just probably about a month ago, I started to realize that I started to feel a lot better. And even those last couple of weeks, I've been doing a lot of soul searching and thinking, wow, I think it's time that I'm feeling good enough that I can actually start living in the present now instead of focusing so much on the past. You know what I mean? So that's what my frame of mind is that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? It's not something I just chose to do or decided to do. That's how I feel. I feel like, okay, I feel pretty good now, so I think I can start moving on to situations I need to work on in the present, like right now, instead of working through so much of my past, which has already been done. And so I'm like, okay, well then, now I can concentrate on doing things for myself, like, for instance, these self-esteem tips, you know what I mean? Like, the information that they offer here on Spirit Wire is really pretty good. We were looking at this one yesterday, which is set an intention. So they say here, before you get out of bed, decide what kind of day you want to have. Make a deliberate caution about how you want to create your day and write it down. Play a little with how it might feel. And when you get up, act accordingly. Remind yourself throughout the day of your intention and look for ways your intention is playing out in your world. Suggested intention, which is to say that we could say when we get out of bed, today is the best day ever. And I mean, this is something that, we have to think positively if we really want to have a positive life. I mean, it's real easy just to keep on doing what I was doing. For me, I'm just talking about myself, because 4.5 years ago, before I started my healing journey, I was able to go to work, no problem. I was doing fine. But I'd come home, and at the end of the day, I was stuck with myself. And I was stuck with the knowledge of what had happened to me as a child, and I was very wounded person. I wasn't able to really feel any kind of joy about being alive on this planet. And then because there was so many situations that are harsh, like my sweetheart being terminally ill and dying, and he feels he's on his last legs, he's just not well. And he's sick, he's dying, you know what I mean? And so, trying to be a caregiver to him, as a caregiver to myself, and a caregiver to my inner children from so long ago who are still crying out and screaming out. Like 5 years ago, I was ready to end my life again, and I had been planning my suicide, like, since I was about, I'd say, a teenager. I don't remember thinking about killing myself any earlier than possibly like 13 or so. You know what I mean? Maybe I did. I don't know. All I know is I started in my teens thinking, wow, there has to be a way out of this mess, So I started doing a lot of heavy-duty drugs around the age of 12, and I didn't care if I overdosed. I didn't care if I ended up in a gutter dead somewhere. I really didn't care. And I created this life for myself until I was 21 that was pretty horrible. And then because it was a horrible life had been created for me by my parents and my siblings, so I just continued it on. And then at 21, I decided, okay, no, I actually want to live, and I want to experience some normal things, and I just want to experience some decent, normal things. So I started to change my life, you know what I mean? But I didn't get in touch with the abuse, and so I just kept on the same old thing. And at the age of 25, still wanted to kill myself. Age 27, still was contemplating suicide. Just an option because my parents were suicidal. They set it up for us. 2 of my brothers killed themselves, and suicide was just something that ran in our family. We sort of seemed in my immediate family, my parents and my siblings, that we were so miserable from growing up in this horrible existence. If you listen to my last 2 years of shows, you get a good idea of what it was like. But so this is the thing. I was very, very down again. And then sitting there just thinking, well, I can work during the day, no problem. I have fun going out with friends, that's great. But I get home and I sit on the couch and it's just me. I'm stuck with me and I'm stuck with my situation. And I realized I had to change that. And the only way to change it was just to start changing it myself and not relying on somebody else and saying, oh, well, maybe somebody else will be able to take my pain away or whatever. You know, I was actually able to realize that it was me. I was going to have to do it. And as soon as I realized that, I got really busy starting to look into information about what I could do to help myself, you know what I mean? I didn't want to go to therapy because I don't trust people really that much, especially therapists and counselors, because I just don't want anybody getting in messing with my head. I've already had people messing with my head, my parents and my siblings. I don't need any more, you know what I mean? I want somebody who's going to help me. If somebody's not going to help me, then they don't need to be around me, you know what I mean? Because I needed to have someone help me, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to help myself. I trust myself to do that. So I decided to do self-help, and it really worked for me. But I would never suggest it for somebody else because So if you have if you're suffering and you've been abused and you're thinking, oh my God, I need help too, and then there's nothing wrong with reaching out to a therapist or a counselor. It's just that you have to make sure you find one that is good, that works for you, that's really an advocate for you to get well, and not going to use your information, to just make it worse. So there are therapists and counselors out there that do know what they're doing, and then there are therapists and counselors out there that don't know what they're doing. So you have to be very careful and very much proactive on being your own best advocate out here. Even myself, I do. We all do. We have to become our own best advocates and know what we want. We have to know what we're looking for. We have to know what we want. So there takes a lot of inner soul self-examination. And I know, I made time to do that. So this last 5 years really has been all about that. You know what I mean? Except for working and whatever I have to do in my daily physical walk. And so I realized that it's going to have to be me to change this stuff. So I like this one thing from Spirit Wire here where they're talking about setting an intention for the day. Really, it's up to us what kind of day we want to have. See, I can wake up in the morning and go, this life sucks. My sweetheart is dying. I mean, I have mornings like this, right? Because it's in my face. My sweetheart is dying. And, sometimes he ends up in the hospital for 2-3 weeks and they don't know. They think he's not coming out because he's terminally ill, so there's no help for him. So when he goes, right? They're not going to try to save his life or anything like that, right? He's dying. So they're going to let him die. Like when he goes in the hospital, they're not going to do anything to help him, right? Because he's terminally ill. And so it's my part of me lives this life that's like, well, no, it's okay. We can get through the day. This is great. My sweetheart is still alive. And this is something that we've had to face for 11 years, right? And so, it's a hard situation to wake up like that and think, oh my God, any year now or any 6 months now or any 3 months now, my life will change again because either I won't be here or my sweetheart won't be here. You know what I mean? Because there's no guarantees in life. You know what I mean? So that's something that I could let drag me down if I wanted to. But I realized that death is just, passing away. It's just part of life. We all going to go. You know what I mean? And so I've experienced a lot of people passing away in my lifetime, so it's nothing new to me. The issue is I love this man, and he's my partner. He's my best friend. He's my sweetheart. He's my other half. You know what I mean? We've been together for 16 years, and this man loves me. You know what I mean? He's pretty good to me. We have the odd occasional flare up and spat like most couples do, but he's a good man. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wow, this is going to be really crappy when he goes because I'm gonna miss him. You know what I mean? But I have to carry on. You know what I mean? And that's just part of life. And I know that it's going to be a hard road for the first little while when he goes. You know what I mean? But I think that I have enough coping skill, support, enough self-awareness to know that I'll be fine. You know what I mean? But it's still, I could wake up every day going, this really sucks. I'm, $20,000 in debt. My sweetheart's dying. I have nothing to my name. I can't even get a permanent job in this city full of jobs, because I don't have a master's degree. And, it's like, what a drag. You know what I mean? I could start my day out like that. You know what I mean? And my physical health is not that great. But you know what I do? I wake up and I'm like, no, another day, man. I'm a fighter. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to create, around me a decent day. So what I do is I be as good as I can be to myself every day. and I'm as good to other people as I can be throughout the day. Somebody's rude to me, well, that's a different story. But, I'll help anybody that I can. I try to make it a good day. I sort of set the intention that, it's going to be a good day because my sweetheart's still alive. I'm still here. The debts, who cares? It's like money. You just do the best you can. You know what I mean? Not gonna, where the job situation's eventually got to change. Eventually I'll have to get somewhere somebody will hire me. My skill levels are pretty good, so I don't understand why I'm having a hard time. But because I believe that all things happen for a reason. So, and nothing is random. So I think that the job I'm looking for just hasn't come yet. So that's my belief. So I choose to believe these things, and that sort of helps me get through the day. But setting an intention for the day, yeah, it's very important. I could wake up and go, this life sucks. Like, look what my parents did to me. Look what my sibling did to me, like abusing me. And, I wake up in the morning and I do my first part of my healing journey here in the morning, and then that's it. I just let it go for the day. You know what I mean? Like, I don't sit around all day going, woe is me. And that's important for us to not do that. My mother did that. Like, she didn't start the day out going, I have a beautiful family, I have a beautiful sons and daughters, I just love my family. She used to wake up and she hated her day. She hated herself. She hated her day. She hated this life. I was talking about that yesterday. And we really, it is literally up to us how we want our day to be. We can create a really bad day. My parents used to create horrible days for us. We had horrible nights and horrible days. My brother created horrible days, you know what I mean? Like being abused, people who are negative and hateful and abusive, self-abusive and everything else can create some horrible, horrible days and nights for the people around them in their lives, you know what I mean? And I grew up like that. And I thought, I do not want to do that as an adult, Like, I want to have a good life, you know what I mean? Like, I do not want to sit around in that kind of frame of mind all the time. Even though I have had, obviously, sometimes things will get you down. You spend a couple of days down or, even one day or something and dealing with things and working through things. Well, that's kind of normal. But I'm talking about day-to-day existence, Like, we really have to create the day that we want. And, my parents could have chose to create a better day for us, you know what I mean? Like, they could have chose to create a better life for us, but they didn't because they were so self-centered, and both of them were very selfish and very self-centered people. Like, they only cared about themselves. My dad only cared about his needs, getting his needs met sexually by raping my mother, and that's all he cared about. Honest to God, that is it. That's all the time. He raped my mother as often as he could. He was a very sick and twisted man. My mother, she just wanted to get her needs met by using us to. She was very codependent, so to help her get through the day, whether we were her punching bag or whether we were her sounding board or whatever, we were just their tools for her to use. You know what I mean? She was very, very selfish, a very selfish person. And, I thought, man, I don't want to live my life like that. I certainly don't want to be like that. You know what I mean? Life doesn't have to be like that. So I like these types of websites that provide this kind of information about, being, setting our own day, setting our own intention. And here's the number 2 is be true to yourself. It says live your life doing what feels right to you, not what someone else thinks you should do. It's okay to listen to advice, but in the end, make the decision that feels best for you. Being a people pleaser is a very frustrating way to live, they said. So they said get in the habit of pleasing yourself. So you are responsible for your own happiness. Your feelings are important. Absolutely. My mother, like looking back at this, being responsible for your own happiness. My mother was I was doing the same my mother did until the age of 42 when I was just, ready to kill myself for the last time there, around March of 2007. And I was doing the same exact thing my mother was doing. Woe is me, and, like not taking responsibility for my own life, not taking responsibility for my adult life, and just saying, this life sucks, I just want out, I want out of my pain, and I want out of my misery. Well, I was doing exactly what my mother was doing, and I didn't even realize it. And then when I started to look at my behaviors, because that's the only way that I've been able to heal and to move forward in my healing journey is to look at my behaviors and be completely honest. You know what I mean? And look at and look at what I've been doing, because if I keep doing the same thing all the time, then it's never going to change. You know what I mean? Because that's the laws of the laws of life. You know what I mean? We keep doing the same thing all the time, and it will always be the same. And so 4.5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago, I realized, wow, I'm just doing the same exactly my mother was doing. My mother taught us how to do this, right? My parents just brought us up and showed us how to live this ridiculous life, And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to change this whole thing, and realize that, wow, I am responsible for myself as an adult. It is up to me, what kind of life I want to live, and I'm responsible for this. So I thought, okay, well then I need to start taking responsibility. So, that's what I've been doing over the last 5 years, really, is to look at my behaviors and see what I can, where I can change things so that I can live a better life and feel better about myself and feel better about this world and about this life, period. In order to, because how can we really help somebody if we can't help ourselves? And how can we really help somebody if we're not in the frame, of mind to even be a help and assistance? You know what I mean? How could I even be, a good person on this planet if I can't even be good to myself? It really starts with us. It starts with me. I had to get a hold of a lot of those really bad negative behaviors, and I'm still working through some of them. You know what I mean? I'm still working on it. I just think it's a lifelong process, right? But, that's just it. We need to live our lives, We need to find out what it is to do and then work on those goals, setting some short-term goals so that we can accomplish some things and start gaining some confidence, and then setting some medium goals, something to reach for, and then setting some long-term goals. I mean, I've always been into goal setting. I used to, a long time ago, I wanted to have a bed and breakfast, sort of more like an inn, like a small inn, bed and breakfast type place where I could cook for people, because I didn't have a great home life when I grew up, and I really wasn't welcome in my home, and I was beaten and sexually used and everything else. And so I wanted to, the idea of having a bed and breakfast was perfect for me, because I thought, hey, I could have people around and I could cook for them. I didn't have any children. So it just meets all of my needs. I thought that totally meets my needs, a wonderful little haven for myself, a bed and breakfast where I could create this wonderful space for people to be in and for myself, and to experience something like that would be great. And so I'm sure that's why I did it. I looked back at it, and thought about why I wanted to do that. It makes total sense. And that's a long-term goal for myself, right? And it's still there. I haven't completely, lost hope. You know what I mean? I'll keep that long-term goal there, because that's something that eventually I hope to have. I hope to be able to do that, because I love to cook and I love to chat with people and love to be a resource for people, and to create a nice place for people where they can, stay for a couple of days, a couple of nights, I thought that would be so cool, So that's a long-term goal for me, and I'm not even, it's such a long-term goal that I'm not focusing on that right now. I'm focusing on the steps on how to get there, right? And so, we need to be good to ourselves. We need to find out what we want to do, make some positive changes in our life, make some positive steps, because there's nothing, I've been looking back for my whole life at the abuse that I suffered, you know what I mean? But I've also been able to look forward as well a little bit, you know what I mean? But I need to also be able to live in the present too. So it's important, we need to get in the habit, like they said, of being good to ourselves, of pleasing ourselves, of knowing what our needs are. And as for abuse survivors, finding out what our needs are, that's very important, because we are met as children, especially survivors of child abuse. We need to go back and find out what those needs are that we didn't get, and then find a way to meet those needs. Mine had a lot to do with nurturing. I was not nurtured as a child. I was not hugged or held or kissed or loved. I was beaten and raped and kicked around and slapped around and cursed out, completely the opposite. I needed love, and I needed hugs, and I needed somebody to hold me and rock me, and those are needs that I did not get met, you know what I mean? So what I'm learning how to do is do that myself. And, it's I have to be able to do it myself, to nurture my inner self that missed out on all that, right? So there's things that we can do. It's important to look around and find that information. I have tons of info, so if anybody's looking for any information on coping mechanisms, or anything like that, adult survivor information, just let me know. I have tons of resources where I've found a lot of really good stuff. So, if you need something, let me know, and you can send me a message here on Blog Talk Radio or Facebook and whatnot. But I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate everybody tuning in, and I wish you the best. If you're, really, if you're having a hard time and you're struggling and you're thinking, man, I just can't, I don't know, I can't do this, you have to get help, right? You have to make sure that you phone somebody. Phone a crisis line. Whatever you have to do. Crisis line people would be people like me who are sitting on the other end saying, you know what, I care, I'm here. Because that's who runs the crisis line. People don't get paid a lot of money. They're not doing it for the money. The pay is really bad. So they're doing it because they want to be there. So that's what I'm saying. If you can't get a hold of a friend, or you can't get a hold of somebody to talk to, your therapist, your counselor, you call somebody, but you make sure you reach out and you do not ever give up. It's just not an option, right? Because there are lots of bad days. Everybody has bad days. But we need to hang in there for the good days, and we need to make sure that we get ourselves some help if we're not able to do these for ourselves. You know what I mean? So you make sure that you reach out and do not ever give up. Right? Have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll be back on same time, and we'll take a look at some of the stuff on the website here. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.